food at this time?
Yes, I do not care for food at this time.
Very well.
Very well. Very well.
Please conserve water.
What time is it?
There is no time in space. This is to say, there is no chronology that can be calibrated.
I said, what time is it? What time is it on Earth? Can you tell me that without an exercise in Euclidean geometry? Now just tell me what time it is on Earth.
On Earth, it would be 12 noon.
12 noon. 12 noon.
This is the way nightmares begin, or perhaps end. Very simple, direct, unadorned. Incredible, and yet so terribly real that even while they're happening, we live with them and digest them and assimilate them. And if it's 12 o'clock noon, that's what you preoccupy yourself with. You don't think about 12 o'clock noon on the next day or the day after that. But that's what we should have been thinking about. Tomorrow and the day after tomorrow. We were preoccupied with the hands on a clock when we should have been checking off a calendar. It was an April day, and it was noon then too. And people walked and drove and bought and sold and fretted and laughed. The world went on, much as it had been going on, with a tentative tiptoeing alongside a precipice of crisis. There was Berlin to worry about, and Indochina and Algeria, and all the other myriad problems, major and minor, that somehow had lost their incisive edge of horror because we were so familiar with them. And then, and that's when it happened. That's when we first heard that they had come. That's when we should have prepared ourselves for any eventuality. But we didn't. Instead, we milled around like frightened farm animals, looking for formulas and father images, while the Secretary General of the United Nations made the first official announcement of the arrival of creatures from outer space. They called themselves Canamitz, and announced over the shortwave that on that given afternoon, they would arrive on Earth.
At 11 o'clock this morning, Eastern Standard Time, the first of these landings took place in an area just outside of Newark, New Jersey. Subsequently, we have had reports of other landings in the Soviet Union, in Norway, the southern coast of France, just outside of Rio de Janeiro, and several others. Speaking on behalf of the United Nations, I can only tell you that at this moment it would be premature to assume hostile intent on the part of these Canamitz. And so it is the position of the United Nations that the world population remain calm, to make no hostile move. To keep in mind that all governments are being apprised of the events as they happen and have the situation well in hand.
What do they look like?
Yeah, what do they look like?
Where are they, as of this moment, no.
Can't we get a more specific statement?
We do not know what they look like. We only know that several of the craft have landed and that they...
What's the secret? Why can't we have
What's going on? What's happening? Please, Mr. Secretary General.
It appears that one of the craft has landed just a few blocks away.
That close?
One of their representatives is on his way to this building.
This is unbelievable.
Respectfully submitted for your perusal, a Canamitz. Height a little over 9 feet. Weight in the neighborhood of 350 pounds. Origin unknown. Motives? Therein hangs the tale. For in just a moment, we're going to ask you to shake hands figuratively with a Christopher Columbus, from another galaxy and another time. This is the Twilight Zone.
Ladies and gentlemen of the Earth, we greet you in peace and friendship. We come from a planet far beyond this galaxy, a planet far more developed than Earth, but we come as friends. Although we know your language, our own methods of communication are mental rather than verbal. Hence, the voice you hear me speaking with is totally mechanical. Our intentions are honorable. We desire above all things to help the people of Earth, to establish embassies here, and in the near future to set up reciprocal visits between Earth people and Canamites.
Perhaps you watched this initial questioning. Most people on Earth did. On television sets, radios, shortwave. And surely some of the questions asked by your representatives must have been identical to more than a few of your own. Because as a race, we're unaccustomed to charity. Brutality is a far more universal language to us than an expression of friendship from outer space.
Would you be willing to be interrogated here and at this time? There are UN delegates present of most of the important countries, and the television cameras are carrying our meeting throughout the world.
I will be glad to.
Senor Valdez of Argentina is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Senor, could you please inform us precisely why have you chosen this planet for your visit?
It has come to our attention that Earth has been plagued by both natural and unnatural catastrophes, all of which could easily be acted upon and prevented. We are here to help you.
Recognizing Dr. Denis Levesque, the representative of France.
Monsieur, my government wishes me to ask you the nature of your help. What forms will it take? Indeed, if we should prefer not to avail ourselves of the various aids that you mentioned, your reply would be what?
We will not force anything on you. You will take only that which you choose to take. For example, tomorrow, we will demonstrate to all interested parties a new and extremely interesting power source, which is atomic in nature and which can supply a form of electric power for entire countries for the cost of a few dollars. It's extremely economical.
Mr. Grigori, the representative of the Soviet Union, is recognized.
People of the Soviet Union would like to ask the Canamites precisely, and I repeat that to him, precisely what are your motives in coming here quite uninvited? Are we to assume that there is no ulterior motive beyond this vast humanity you speak of?
Well, there is nothing ulterior in our motives, nothing at all. You will discover this for yourselves before too long, simply by testing the various devices which we will make available to you. We can show you, for example, how to add a certain very cheap nitrate to the soil and end famine on Earth for good and all. We can demonstrate to you quite practically the principles of the force field, in which you may cloak each nation with an invisible wall, absolutely impenetrable by bombs, missiles, or anything else. We ask only that you trust us. Only that you simply trust us.
That was what we all thought. It was the age of Santa Claus. Only these Kris Kringles came without white whiskers and rosy cheeks and twinkling eyes. They were 9 feet tall enigmas who descended on us like locusts. But nobody was counting or worrying. Except perhaps a few professionals whose job it was to second guess. In a sense, I was one of these, a decoding specialist for the United States government. And this is where I got into the act.
Well, Chambers, what have you got?
The corker of a migraine headache, an eye strain.
You can't lick it?
No, not in 8 hours, I can't. Colonel, it took us almost a year to crack the Japanese code. We had an army of men working on that. But this is a language of People from outer space, probably 500 times as intelligent as we are and 1,000 times more complex.
You need more help.
All donations gratefully accepted. Now, I showed this to every man on our staff. I've had a dozen people working on it since late last night. We tried pretty much everything. Single transposition, double transposition. We've tried every known method of cryptography there is, and I don't know whether we're even close or a million miles away.
Are you saying it's indecipherable?
No, we just got to keep trying, that's all. Standard, direct, reversed, systematically mixed, keyword mixed, random mixed, reciprocal, conjugate. Every nature of sequence of letters there is. I'll tell you something, Colonel. This is a tough nut. This is a real tough nut. How important is it?
I don't know. That Canamet, or whatever it is he calls himself, walked off and left this book yesterday at the UN. The White House seems to feel that if we can decipher what this book says, we can find out what these Canamets are up to.
Obviously nothing but our good. He hasn't commented on the loss of this book. He's probably unconcerned that we have it. Why should we be so concerned? They've done all right by us so far.
Parlor tricks.
Well, they don't seem like parlor tricks to me, Colonel. That new approach to nitrate use they demonstrated in Argentina this morning. That soil had more vitamins in it 6 hours later than a drugstore chain. I know that country. That's as barren and fruitless as any place on earth. Well, we might lick this, we might not. But I got a strange feeling.
What?
We're looking a gift horse in the mouth. I got another funny feeling, too.
And that is?
That if these Canamets are as helpful as I think they are, you boys are going to be out of a job. And probably so will I.
Am I to assume this is a scientific analysis, Mr. Chambers, or just some Kentucky windage?
Well, I don't know what it is, Colonel. Beyond an instinctive feeling. It tells me that when this Earth gets enough to eat, when there are no more wars or diseases or famines, this is going to be a Garden of Eden.
Your optimism is most refreshing, Mr. Chambers, but I suggest that for the time being, you continue your process of deciphering until you can tell us precisely, and I mean precisely, what that book says.
We've licked the title anyway.
What does it say?
How much does it tell us?
Here it is.
Well, that makes the cheese a little more binding, wouldn't you say, Colonel? I'd call that a reasonably altruistic phrase. Do you agree, Patty?
Well, I want to believe it, but I don't know what to think.
To serve man. I hope so. I fervently hope so.
Gentlemen, the purpose of this meeting is to acquaint you with certain tests made over the past week. At the request of several of our delegates, and with the full consent of our guests, the Canamets, these tests were filmed, cut together into one short film, and you can watch them now. Kindly lower the screen.
These are the standard instruments used to determine the truth of a statement. Our first object, since the physiology of the Canamets is unknown to us, was to determine whether or not they react to these tests as human beings do. We will now repeat one of the many experiments made in an effort to discover this fact. This instrument records the subject's heartbeat. This one shows the electrical conductivity of the skin in the palm of the hand, a measure of perspiration which increases under stress. This one shows the pattern and intensity of the electrical waves emanating from the subject's brain. Which of these is longer than the other? The gray. I shall repeat the question. Which of these is longer than the other? The black. How did you get to this planet? Walked. Once again, how did you get to this planet? In a spaceship.
Many such experiments were made, and my colleagues and myself are satisfied that the mechanisms are effective. Now, I shall ask our distinguished guest to reply to the question put at the last session by several of the delegates. Namely, what is the motive of the Kennemet people in offering such great gifts to the people of the earth?
Now, I hope that the people of Earth will understand and believe when I tell you that our mission upon this planet is simply this: to bring to you the peace and plenty which we ourselves enjoy, and which we have in the past brought to other races throughout the galaxy. When your world has no more hunger, no more war, no more needless suffering, that will be our reward.
And the machine showed no deviation. According to it, the Kennemet was telling the truth. You and I and the rest of this Earth had a ringside seat to the rebirth of every dream man had ever dreamed.
Le gouvernement français vous annonce que pour la première fois dans l'histoire de la République, nous allons désarmer la moitié de notre armée.
我々日本人は多くの方が金光大使の恩義の投函に耐えません。重ね我々の信仰を祈っています。
Naturalmente, los habitantes de la América del Sur están muy orgullosos de nuestros bienhechores de más allá de nuestro espacio.
Santa Claus came through. Arid deserts became gardens with the devices the Kennemets showed us how to use. The force field that was to end war did precisely that. Armies and navies were practically disbanded.
Please check your guest visas. This is flight number 267 from Earth to our planet.
They tell me they have a mean temperature of 76 degrees on their planet, and the sun never goes down.
And their clothing. It's a metallic substance, just beautiful, kind of like a spun gold. My sister wrote me. She says the day you land, they take you on a conducted tour of all their shops, and you can pick out as much of it as you want.
But it's an entire planet, bigger than China. Besides, it's an opportunity to spread peaceful coexistence through an entire galaxy. Stand aside, please. I have diplomatic visa.
It's just one big holiday when you get there. They've even got a form of baseball or something like it. Leagues and everything, just like we've got.
And the whole trip, billions of miles, only takes just a few days.
Oh, man, I don't think I'll want to come back once you do get there.
I'm going home, boss. Need me for anything?
Need you for anything like what? This isn't exactly what you'd call a beehive of activity.
Well, this is the new story of man. Nobody needs to decipher much of anything anymore because there aren't any more codes, simply because there aren't any more secret messages. Odd.
Huh?
I mean, well, not reading about the hydrogen bomb or war scares or insurrections or anything like that anymore.
Millennium.
Yeah, close to it. How many of them are around now? Anybody ever figure it out?
A few thousand, I guess. They've got embassies in every country now. And for every one of them that comes, a few thousand of us take off in one of their ships to live with them. And that's the odd thing. The fantastic ease with which human beings make adjustments. One day, they watch with bated breath while a single individual orbits the Earth in a rinky-dink little cubicle, and they think this is the most historic moment that's ever happened in the history of mankind. And then, 1 year later, they stand in line, waiting to take off in a spaceship. They go 100 billion miles off into space, and they act and react as if this were a weekend picnic in the country. Oh, strange and complex sanity of man. Nothing phases it.
Are you going?
Well, as a matter of fact, I'm on a 10-year exchange group waiting list.
Mm-hmm.
And what about you, Patty?
I'm on the list, too. Well, the trouble is, their quota's filled just as soon as they make the announcement of a new trip. While I'm waiting, I think I'll do the next best thing. I'm still working on that book. You know, deciphering that title, well, it's been of no help, because their capital letters are different than the other signs they use, just as ours are. But it's starting to fall into place now. I think I'll get the answer eventually.
Well, more power. I gave up trying a month ago.
This is flight number 914 from Earth to our planet. We will be taking off in 3 minutes.
Mr. Chambers! Mr. Chambers! Don't get on that ship! The rest of the book, To Serve Man, it's a cookbook!
No! 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 Ah!
You have not eaten enough, Mr. Chambers. Please, enjoy. Eat hearty.